Kaizen is a life philosophy of continual improvement, and this YouTube series is devoted to passing knowledge or ideas in the spirit of that philosophy. In the special bonus episode, I'm going to talk about my Minkowski Etudes Max interface. In the past couple of weeks, I've done a bunch of Max programming work for a new piece that I'm writing called the Minkowski Etudes for trumpet and computer. I'm just about done with all the programming side of the project, so that means I'm also ready to hand this to my trumpet player, Dylan Kester, for testing. Dylan doesn't know much about Max at all, however, so this video's primary purpose is to give him a tutorial on how to work with my user interface. But I thought I might as well post it publicly too and add it to my Kaizen video series. So when you open up the Minkowski Etudes patch, then it's going to open up the main patcher window and also the performance interface. The thing that you're going to want to do when you put it into your computer first is if you go into the Max window under Options, you're going to see, you're going to go down to File Preferences. And so what you want to do is you want to say, I have a bunch of user paths here, but you're probably just going to see 1 and 2 patches and examples. The next thing you want to do is you want to try to add a new path, and you're going to say Choose. And you want to choose the folder that contains the primary Minkowski Etude patch, which is going to be the shared folder of which you open this patch. Now, if you want to take the patch and all of the stuff within the folder and put it somewhere else, then you can do that, but then you just have to make sure that you create a new path that reflects the actual path of where all those objects are going to live. Once you're done with that, then you're going to go over to your performance interface. Now, this isn't complete because the actual cues for the piece of music are not programmed into this right now. So if you were going to do movement 1, rehearsal letter A, and it was going to cycle through a bunch of cues, it's going to do a bunch of nonsense that is not going to actually relate to the music that I'm going to hand you. What I want to show you more is how to test drive the various patches of the piece independently. And so that's going to come not from this window primarily, but from the mixer window, which is located here, the debug window, which is this green window that shows a bunch of information, and also this patcher that's called comment commands. We'll start with the mixer window because right now there's nothing actually happening. You notice that all of these levels here are set down to infinity. The first level that you can do, that you want to deal with here, is setting the level of the actual input. So when you have your trumpet in with the microphone, then this signal right here, but first you have to turn the actual audio on, which is to click this mixer, this microphone button. And when you do that, then you can test drive and just set the level for the actual trumpet input. This is the patch master, which controls the master level of these 3 patches over on this side. And so in order for me to hear, say, results of buffer loop, this is the level of the individual buffer loop, but you're not going to hear anything unless you also have the patch master up. And that's going to be true of the grain chord and also the grain buffer. All 3 of these are connected to the patch master. There's also these wheels here that deal with reverb. The first wheel deals with how much of the direct signal is going to get captured for reverb, and that can be a value anywhere between 0 and 100. I'm just going to set this to 87. And then the right side is how much reverb do you want to actually hear from that signal that you poured in, and that can be a value anywhere between 50 and 100. So now you have these levels here. I'm not going to do it for the patch master because I just want it to happen through these sub patches. Now that you've got these levels, then if you want to save that level, then you can hold down Shift and click, and it will save a new level. And if I go back to the first one, then you can see that everything is now set at 0. If I go to that third one that I just created, it's going to save the settings for all of these faders and all of the reverb. And you can save however many ones that you want. The next thing is that you've got your debug window. And this debug window is going to show various information here relating to the actual patches and also the pitch that you're actually playing when you're playing through the trumpet, and if you're recording into an actual buffer. Now, the pitch is not actually doing anything right now because I don't have this in rehearsal mode. If I take this and I turn on QWERTY commands and put this into rehearsal mode, then any pitch that I sing, na 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 na, is going to be reflective of the actual MIDI note, with 60 being C if you want to have that translate into trumpet for B flat, you go back to this performance interface and you can say, I want this to be in B flat. I want to raise the pitch by 2 half steps. And now if you were going to hit any pitches, then it would be 2 steps higher. And actually the cues that would show up here for the number and the note that Max is going to be listening to activate the next patch would also change to be 2 half steps higher, or the note name would be 2 half steps higher. The last window is something I just put together to give you easy access to do test driving for the various patches that are involved here. Don't worry about the triggers over on this side right now. That's the one thing that's usually more programmatic to test cues. You don't need to worry about that. The thing that you want to do is that you want to record stuff into the buffers. So the command buffer record is going to record into the buffer that you name movement 1.1 or movement 1.2 or movement 1.3. Once you get recording a buffer, then you stop the recording by saying buffer record 0. So right now let's just take a buffer and let's record one. Let's make sure that I've got my inputs in here the right way. Yeah, all that stuff is fine. So I'm going to say buffer record movement 1.1. This is buffer record movement 1.1, and you can see that this thing is now putting that actual buffer in real time. And then when I hit 0, it's going to stop recording that buffer. And let's also record buffer 1.2 while we're at it. This is 1.2, your radio station for Max Minkowski Etudes. And I'm going to demonstrate that by recording a bunch of stuff and then hitting 0. And let's do one for movement 1.3. And I'll actually use 1.3 to explain that the maximum size of any given buffer is 20 seconds. I think that once it hits 20 seconds, then it's going to retreat back to the beginning and overwrite anything that you might have, or it might just stop recording. I haven't actually explored that whole much because I don't imagine that I'm going to actually record any buffer beyond 20 seconds. Okay, so now we have 3 buffers that are recorded, and there's a few different things that you can do with that. Now, if you want to play any particular loop, then the movement 1.1, 1.2 is what I'm calling movement here and sample number. So here, if I wanted to play back that first sample, then I'm going to put 1 into this window, and I'm going to put 1 into the second one. Now, I need to be able to assign this a poly voice that's between 1 and 16, because the object is a poly object that allows for a single patch to have different instances to be able to do multiple buffers. So you need to be able to assign this a number between 1 and 16. That helps give it a marker for you to refer to later if you want to stop that loop, or if you want to change the volume of that loop, which you'll see down here a little bit below. So if I say that I want this to be in poly voice number 1, then now it's going to assign voice 1 to movement 1.1. Then when I hit a speed, let's say that I want that to be running at a speed, 100% speed, which is going to be 1. This is buffer record movement 1.1, and now you hear that first buffer. Thing is now putting that actual buffer in real time. I'm going to turn the level up a little bit, and you can see that if I want to change the reverb, this is buffer record movement 1.1, and you can see I can move that all the way to 0, and that doesn't feed that sample into the reverb portion of the patch. This is buffer record movement 1.1, and you can see that this now is going to put that reverb back in. And this is the level of reverb, so I can adjust the amount of reverb movement 1.1, and you can see that this by adjusting this now level. Putting that actual buffer in real time. And then when I hit 0, now if I wanted to, I could say, well, now I want to have buffer 1, and 1.2 thing is now happen simultaneously. You don't want to replace that with the same poly voice. You need to give each individual buffer a separate poly voice so the patches don't get confused. So I'm going to assign this 1.2 to poly voice number 2. And I'm going to give this a speed of, well, actually, why don't we do this? Let's do 1.1 in poly voice 2, and we're going to do that at a speed of 0.8. And then when I hit 0,
this is buffer record movement 1.1, and you can see that this
thing is
now if I also want to change the actual volume
of any individual one, I can say, let's say that let's put another one in here. Let's do poly voice 3, and we'll put that at a speed of 1.6.
that actual buffer in real
time. So I've got that one now running a lot higher. But I don't want that one to be as loud, or maybe I don't even want the lower one to be as loud. So I can take this third one and say that I want it to be at a decibel level of negative 15.5. And that's going to take that third voice that I assigned as the poly voice for that 1.6 one, and it's going to take that and bring that down. If I go to the second one, and I will say, okay, I want that to be a little bit softer, but not quite as soft, I can say I want that to be negative 8. And now you hear those more as a background versus buffer number 1.
You can see that this
Let me take the first one actually, and we're going to bring that down.
actual buffer in real time. And then when I hit 0, this is buffer record movement 1.
So then I can say I want to stop one of these, and it will take, let's say that I take the second voice and I want it to end looping. If I say last time on this poly voice, it's going to play the entire poly of that second voice to the end, and then just not loop it again. It's going to consider that last time. And you can see that now the only thing that you hear are the poly voices of 1 and 3. And there's also an indicator over here that shows you which full loop buffers are active. So right now 1 and 3 is there. I don't know if you saw it before that 1, 2, and 3 were up there, but now that I've gotten rid of 2, then 2 is eliminated from that list. And I can also say 3. Now I'm going to say 3 is last time, and 3 has gone away. Let's put in voice 4, 1, 2, just so we get a different sample. We'll put that at the speed of 1.
This is 1.2 movement 1. I hit 0, recording a bunch of stuff, and then hitting 0.
If I was going to hit this button, which is stop all full loops, then as opposed to waiting until last time, it's just going to stop all of those loops instantly. The second thing is, normally if you play back a loop, then speed and pitch are intertwined. So if I say half speed, it's also going to be at half pitch. Well, grain buffer allows you to control those independently. So let's say that I've got this 1, 1, 1. I've got the pitch at 0.5. No, I'm sorry. I want the pitch to be 1. But I can now make the speed, we'll do 0.8. So now that it's at 0.8, but you can see that the pitch is still exactly the same. If I want to do this at 1.3, it's the same, it's a speed of 1.3 but a pitch of 1. If I want, I can also then keep it at a speed of 1.3, but change the pitch
is now putting that actual buffer
to 0.7.
And then when I hit 0.
And I can also set the poly voice and the dB in the same way. I can do last time in the same way as full loop. For right now, I think what I want to do actually is do set a second voice. And let's do 1.3. Now, one bug is that anytime that you change any of these numbers, it's going to send both of them. So right now, when I set up 1.3, if I change the pitch to 1, it's going to start with a speed of 1.3, and that's just an artifact of this particular command window. But in the actual piece itself, that's not going to be an issue.
And I'll actually use 1.3 to explain that.
So let's put the speed at 0.8.
The buffer is 20 seconds.
This poly voice here is separate from the poly voices for full loop, so you can use 1 through 4 simultaneously while using 1 through 4 in grain buffer. But let's have, for completion, just have one that's going to be 0.5 speed, but at 1 pitch.
This is 1.2.
And we'll put this at a decibel level of 0.7. And we'll have a voice 4. I have 1.2 also. Let's do that at a speed that's slightly faster. So that at some point it'll be in unison and try to catch up with itself. And we're just going to play through these once. So I'm just going to say we're going to stop 3, and we're going to stop 4 after we actually get done with this.
Minkowski Etudes, recording a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to demonstrate that by recording a bunch of stuff and then hitting 0.
The last thing that I want to show is the grain chord stuff. The grain chord is right now is just simple commands for you to just kind of try to hear when you have your individual pitch, and you want to have chords played with you. If you just do one grain chord, then you can have one at 0.7. Let's see if I can get that to sound the way I want it to. Na, 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 na. And if I want to, I can change this to have, say, let's do all three. Na, 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 na. So just to make sure that you can get those chords to happen in the way that they need to for the grain buffer. If I wanted to, I could also add other chords in there. Again, this set of commands over here is just for test driving. When it actually goes to the real piece, then all this stuff is going to get cued by pitches and through cue lists. So, but this is just to make sure that if you have any setup issues, like say that we were going to rehearse the actual piece, if for some reason the buffers aren't recording or the patches aren't activating or doing the things that they need to, then you could always come back to this debug window and these commands and just see whether it's a product of the cues or if it's a product of the patches themselves and how your setup is actually configured. And so you can always just test drive those elements by themselves and not have to do it in the context of going through the actual music to make sure that all the cues are done in the right way. And that's all of the patches. Let me turn this off. Sorry. Where's my cursor? There it is. That's all the patches that are involved in the piece overall. So yeah, for Dylan, let me know if you have any questions. And for anybody else, if you liked what you saw here, then please give it a like. Feel free to comment. Please subscribe to my channel because I try to make new Kaizen videos once a month on various different topics. If you have ideas for content that you would like to see on this channel, then please drop me a comment. Find me on Twitter. You can find me an email. I'm pretty easy to find all over the internet. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.